Welcome to Luthiers Legacy Show, a podcast created especially for fine violin makers and luthiers obsessed with creating top quality instruments for their musicians. My name is Badiarov. I'm a violin maker, former professional musician turned award-winning speaker, business coach and mentor. I'm best known for the revival of the ancient masters' acoustic concepts and the rebirth of the violoncello da spalla. And today I am passionate about helping open-minded instrument makers to create instrument-making businesses they will love and keep the ancient masters' acoustic concepts alive. Regardless whether you have been in the profession for decades or you're just starting out, it is time for you to shake things up. It is time to make an even bigger difference, and it is time to start creating a legacy at bench. So without further ado, let's crack on, let's get started with today's show. Hello dear friends, welcome to Luthiers and Legacy Show. In today's episode, our very special guest is Gordan Nikolic. Gordan is one of the leading violinists today. And he was London Symphony Orchestra concertmaster for 20 years, from 1997 to 2017, where he worked with celebrity conductors such as Claudio Abbado, Valeria Gergiev and Bernard Haitink. He's regularly invited to work with Australian Chamber Orchestra, Orchestre des Chambres de Genève and the Antwerp Symphony Orchestra. And he's the musical director of Netherlands Chamber Orchestra since 2004. So I'm really excited having such an amazing guest with us. Very warm welcome, Gordan, to Luthiers and Legacy Show.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me for this chat.
Wonderful, Gordan. Thank you so much for your time. So there are so many things that I would like to ask you, and hopefully our listeners will find it inspirational. So what is your story? Was it an instant success, or have you had to deal with any obstacles? What was your journey as a world-class violinist?
A journey that never ends, basically, and just it's when you define things being capable of fertility, of self-developing, and of basically learning to learn. That is like a big snowball that becomes ever bigger and bigger. Not big in a sense of things that are compressed inside of what you know, but just of the noticing. Sheer feeling of noticing how many other things are around and how many things have we lost or how many things are still to be discovered. Basically, the journey. The journey has been, geographically speaking, from Serbia to Switzerland, then to France, England, and now I live in Belgium. And as Menuhin once nicely pointed out, for a composer it's good to be from a country, from a mentality, from a specific way of looking at things. But as an interpreter, it's very good to be a cosmopolite. That means a pigeon voyageur, in a sense of that you have to figure out as well what is the smell of the music of Bartók, and as well Grieg, where Grieg stands, and then when you go to do some Rameau, what is that related to, and then when you have some Bourgeois Gentilhomme written by Strauss, that means in Vienna, that is not French and that is different, and etc. All these kind of combinations. This is just a never-ending story of understanding what is laying under what is supposed to be evident. And this work on a violin level and this work on an artistic level, on a human level, are just always, rushing over each other, and whatever stays somehow in the moment, that's what is your culture at that particular moment, but it's a moving business. Yeah, so it's all about accepting that this is actually never to be fixed.
Wonderful story. It made me feel almost nostalgic. It brought me back to those times when I was performing as a violinist and immersing myself in different cultures of different composers. And it is true to find a way to connect on the deepest level with music of any particular composer. It is very good to be this pigeon Voyageur, yes, and get immersed in different cultures.
Yeah, for instance, one other little specificity there, it's César Franck, the Belgian composer, who is actually a total Wagnerian in his kind of like substance, but Belgian Wagnerian. That means, and as well, of course, a very peculiar character. But this softness and this time that it takes for the mystics is, for me, even softer than Wagner. And then you have another Wagnerian, which is Dvorak. Kind of like the man who, for me, for instance, just is, I think, is the composer who I feel he really had friends. You just sit down, you speak, you play Dvorak, and you just feel he was loved. He was just simply loved, not kind of like complicated loves like Brahms, or Schumann, etc. No, just simple, friendly. And this is so beautiful to feel this difference, like Mozart, Haydn as well, Beethoven, Haydn, this little time difference as well. Yeah.
How do you approach your repertoire? Because all of these composers and all of their works are now, you are familiar with them on a visceral level. You know that music inside out, and you have been playing it for many, many years. So how do you find inspiration? How do you approach a piece of music which you have performed countless times? And how do you find new inspiration and new angles in the music that you are performing?
I think that the biggest trap of our craft, we are there to put these little dots, which are written down on a piece of paper. Now it's on a computer, to bring them to life. So the biggest problem that you can encounter, the biggest trap that is there, is to stop where you understand anything, basically. You can stop on any level of understanding because you understood it.
Yeah.
But my father was once gave me a very useful tool for this. He explained me once a difference between a sign and a symbol. Sign being an information which meaning stops with its sense. It means once when you have, for instance, a limitation of the speed on a highway, I have 120, there is no other meaning than that. That means this is sense of it is its meaning. This is equal. But a symbol has a very simple opposite invitation. That means its meaning starts with its sense.
Interesting.
So it's very beautiful.
Never thought about this in that way.
But he's philosophers, so their job is to think about these sort of things, And basically, once when you have a note, it is a symbol. So you have to look for what it means, why it is there, and where it is going. What is its tendency somehow, Music is an art of time. And as such, the most important thing in music is tendency. If you neglect the tendency, if you just take care of any now, you're losing it, basically. It's just, you can be very correct, but you will never be carrying any kind of story. So the symbol of the notes first is in their relationship. The key for their relationship is in harmony. That means the Western music is definitely the most important aspect in the Western music. As I've been told once beautifully by Jean-Bernard Pommier, meeting him just on the stairs in Kodals in Rotterdam.
Okay.
He was going down, I was going up. Hello, how are you? Yes, okay. How are students? Very good. Yeah, as good as we actually managed to teach them. Yeah, okay, interesting. Why? Yeah, because they are so related to rhythm, and exactitude of things, but they don't accept that the most important, most affecting part of our music is harmony. And I was saying, okay, you talk, I listen, and then I went, and then I understood that actually this is the best formulation for the thing. Of course, if you're a good musician, if you have played with good musicians, that means if you have inherited this experience of good music making, that's what it is about.
Yeah.
Because a rhythm, if it's in such a harmony, or rhythm if it's in such a harmony, it cannot be the same. Even yum takatam or yum takatam, it's just kind of like it depends of what harmony is around, what intonation is available.
Yeah.
How you intonate your harmonies.
Yeah.
So basically that's it.
And that's it. And that's where it also has the tendency to be bottomless, because you can dig in those depths forever, your entire life, and reinvent music and see new stuff. It's beautiful. I understand where your musicianship comes from. So what was your orchestra leader journey? How have you become an orchestra leader?
Coincidence, usually in a life, which are not coincidences, kind of like. It is truth that first I have been in a boarding school when I've been little beginner in a violin field. And in this boarding school, we had a lovely little orchestra where we played, Corelli Concerti Grossi and, for instance, this Grieg, the Holdberg suite, source of amazing souvenirs. Really,
yes.
The first time that you play this sort of music, and when it really starts to sound. It's absolutely ridiculous. That means you cannot compare that to anything else.
Yeah.
Especially when you are small. Today I was teaching and I was telling my student to consider in a Schumann sonata, the slow movement of such a so-called middle movement of the first sonata. And I tried to explain him that this childish talent of Schumann, that means this talent to believe in a story exactly like it is the first time you hear it. That means that you hear any story for the first time. I still remember when I was 3 years old and somebody with 7 told me something, I don't remember what it was. I just was that I was petrified how important it was for me. And of course, he knew immediately that this was, and then I was again, and I was, kind of like, what is important? It's just mutual interest and, passion.
Yes.
And so this, in Schumann, for instance, is absolutely essential to understand that it's very childish in a sense that when it happens so for real that it should happen like first time in any life. So, sorry, I got carried away. What was your question, actually? I need to...
That's a beautiful story. So thank you very much for sharing this. So we started with how have you became an orchestra leader, and exactly. So from the story, it sounds like it has been already. It's an old story from your very tender years.
Exactly.
So I see
this sort of reality which just keeps you in something that. Immediately forms an ideal,
I see, yeah. So it's something that you've been enjoying, leading and inspiring others from a young age.
No, I was not leading at all. I was not leading at all. No, I was very in my corner there, not understanding what's going on. And then when I started leading, it was a viola section of the school, because I grew kind of nicely, and one explained me how to read the viola key cheating. That means what is in the third position in one string is actually in the first position on the next string on a viola, but the other way around sometimes, so those who know will understand, is you don't know which note you're playing, but if there are not too many sharps and flats, you may end up playing right notes. But I liked it very much because this middle voice has been as well a revelation for me, because you practice your Wieniawski, etc., but then you play, just you decide if it's going to be a major and or minor, and what kind of major and what kind of minor in a chorale, and then you see, wow, lots of space there. And then this ideal of sound of a group has been carried to other experiences in Basel during my studies. And then I got, right away when I finished my studies, even before I finished it, I got the job in Clermont-Ferrand in Orchestra d'Auvergne, as leading job. And I didn't have a clue what one needs to do there. That means I was far too young. I was 20. And basically I was sitting next to a lady who just knew 20 times more about what this job means. For me, that was a totally new kind of like idea. We'll just play. That was my idea. Play, and everybody plays well, and then we were playing well, and that's it. Then, of course, I went into the first trap of understanding. That means I'm afraid I have been a bit of, not such a nice person to deal with sometimes. Because big thing in music is you have an idea and then you explain it to other how it works, and then they're supposed to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't agree.
Actually, they were really nice. They agreed. They were really nice orchestra. I think there are several quite nice leaders which came out with their debut from this orchestra. For instance, Svetlin Rusev as well. There are few other quite important names in the business who have been first leading there. Just, it's such a nice atmosphere, such a nice people to work with, that you just really can actually understand that you are at fault, not the others. And that's what they offered me. That means I really tried to explain them the best possible what I wanted out of a certain piece of music, and they did it.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound. And I was a bit, it was okay. Yeah, it was good. I listened to recording. It looks like, but it doesn't have this fantastic sound that I sometimes heard, And even my sound is not so fantastic as what I would like to imagine. So I was a bit kind of like, is it them? Is it me? Is it my idea? And then ages later, of course, you become a bit complacent and you become a bit more tolerant. There are more spaces around. But in the end, it's not about agreeing or being together or playing in the same kind of way, it needs to be complementary. And complementary with what? With facts? No, that doesn't work. Complementary with love. That means how to make these beautiful platforms that we are actually dealing with, on which we are dealing with each other. That means on the platform of Mozart Jupiter, you deal with 40 people in Concertgebouw, if you're lucky. And there's all platforms on which something is happening between all these relationships.
Of course.
And if you actually can have around you a group of experienced musicians who are not trying at any price to have it that way, or this way, or do you want this, or is he wanting that? But to actually, out of all these 5 or 6 or 20 or 40 people, have one thing, find one thing which is relatively common that can feed everybody. Then you have a symphonic kind of sound that is those days quite, I would say, very rare.
Well, this is an incredible story. So like as you speak, I have this question and that question to ask, and it's like leadership on the very highest level, where yes, there is space for everyone to express themselves, and there is this concordance, this agreement, this love. and you're using that platform, as you said, be it Mozart or whatever piece of composition, where each one has a space to express themselves. So it's like not conformity to one ideal, so to speak, or something. Wow, that's...
Listen, if you just look, for me, it was quite revelatory to go once to this exposition of, in London, there was this wonderful exposition of Titian, which had the entire span of his development there. And you have these fantastic beginnings, which were very, very much like photographic exactitude and depth of the event, with a fantastic sense of dramaturgic kind of setup and energies of characters which are really complementary, very, very sometimes disturbing. I still see Santa Anna wanting to eat Jesus in her arms, how much she doesn't know what to do with herself, looking this baby, knowing exactly who he is. And the Madonna being there like, I never can understand whatever can happen to me. These two totally different reactions to this defining event in our culture. That's the beginning. Total virtuoso, fantastic informations and depth of understanding of a human nature, relationships, etc. Bravo, fantastic. But when you look late Titian, you have this totally different story. No dramatization whatever. There is no story to be complete. You don't need to sell the business. No. When they take away the Jesus from crucifix, there is one late painting. The mother is very sad. The people are silent, and Jesus is dead. You can smell a bit the way that he's gray and a bit green, etc. But the splash of the painting, the depth of it just grabs you like, it's like epic replacing the dramatic. In our culture, according to Kundera, etc., and I follow him on that, the epic Homer has been, by Sterne and Rabelais and Cervantes, have been replaced with self-ironical drama. But then again, the comeback of the epic, this is what I think is real musicality. Real musicality of a group, especially, is to be able to come back to the epic of the things with, all the ingredients. Please bring it in, smuggle it in. Yeah, bring whatever. But don't make me anything that makes me have only one choice.
Yes, definitely. So it reminds me, this story reminds me some of the experiences that I have had as a professional musician when I've been invited to play with groups and where there was very little liberty for individual musicians to express themselves, where musicians had to really conform very tightly and strictly with the desire of the conductor or the concertmaster or both, and that's fine, it works, they did this. However, there were also those groups with which I have had the blessing to work with for a number of years, where musicians were unbelievably free. So it doesn't mean that we could do whatever we want to do, but there was this kind of leadership where we were inspired by the vision of the leader, the charismatic personality of the leader. We would work on an idea and the rehearsals could be really detailed, and sometimes I was like screaming inside myself, you are kidding me, how on planet Earth are we going to get that effect from just a violin? If that makes sense. But then, so yes, the work was really detailed, the rehearsals were really detailed, but during performances, all of a sudden, we were left completely alone, on our own, with music. And there were so many magical moments happening under that sort of leadership. And yeah, what you have just shared about your style of leadership it makes me feel that this is your approach to being a leader, that charismatic leader in which musicians have the space to grow personally, professionally, artistically, and so forth. So my next question would be, what do you think are the common issues in orchestra leadership?
It's basically just one other aspect of the same question, yeah. Because to come back to your experience that I share with you, absolutely. It doesn't matter if there is a space for individual creativity or not. Because if you dig a little bit deeper, there is always space for it. I still remember this shock that I had once coming to Royal College, where I had for a while a very intense relationship with the strings there and with the orchestra, actually, in general. I did a few projects without conductor, but as well, once I was invited to prepare the strings for the Bruckner Symphony with Bernard Haitink to come, And I had this luxury position of having even a conductor there, a very good guy who was really beautifully playing the things, with the orchestra extremely prepared already. They already rehearsed. And I was there to tell them what to do or what not to do. Just from the hall, listening to how they sound. And at one point, I remember there was a crescendo, and I just explained them how actually before a crescendo to take a little bit more of a closed-in sound, and then just really not about soft, because today's soft is much bigger than today's loud. Actually, in many ways, people think that relaxation is soft. Relaxation is big. Action is narrowing thing for the sound. So I explained them actually how to close down the sound and how to let it open. And then they all did it. Just all of them were really kind of like very, very nice level of student orchestra, kind of incredible quality for this sort of youth. And I still remember they all did it perfectly, but did only what I asked for. And of course, they were inside of this line. There were some little harmonical finesses, and violas should have done that, etc. No, there was only one direction because he asked for it. And then I said to them, never ever do that again. That means whatever, exactly like in linguistics. In linguistics, when after an exchange of information or a discussion, it ends up with a no, it's not an annihilation of the entire discussion, it's an addition to the entire discussion. So it's very reductory to just say, okay, no to this. Maybe with the tak, it would be or maybe, etc. So what is this thing? What is this negation relating to? If I ask you to do something, I am not asking you to do only this. Smuggle everything you love, everything you get attracted by on the way, by doing this. That means today's education being very, very much busy with informations.
Yes.
Because, I think today you get more informations in 4 years than, you needed 20 years to dig them out in, 40 years ago.
Yes.
So this is what we're talking about. And people are actually, once when you even bring in the element of emotion there, or kind of digestion, emotional digestion of the entire story, people are scared because they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
So this is a thing that is in the today as a leader, and I know when I'm leading an orchestra in Holland or in England or in Spain or in Serbia, it's just a different world, different relationship to the ideal, if there is any. because if you're a professional, you're not there. By definition, as a professional, you're not there to defend a relationship to an ideal. That means if you say, you did a professional mistake, but it was because I was defending my relationship to the ideal, you would be kicked out. That means that's not an argument. But of course, at the bottom of ours, the first guy who was painting there as a Neanderthal or Cro-Magnon or whatever,
Yeah.
They didn't do it, so they don't lose their job. So what is the substance of our profession? I think the leadership should always keep in touch with the origins of that. And why I am choosing today to sometimes very patiently, sometimes very impatiently insist on the fact that one has to be able to go one own way in whatever situation, and to manage with each other that we still stay in touch, and that's it. Spread it, but don't break it.
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing, and so now learn what you can add, which is not breaking it.
Yes.
It's just because that's the thing that I'm the most missing in today's world anyway. Music is not an exception.
Yes, 100% agree with that. Yes, it's very valuable. You mentioned this, the importance of keeping in touch with origins, and something that I've been inspired by a Belgian musician, Sigis Valkijken, on my journey as a violin maker, because when I came to Belgium in 1994, I felt so inspired by his example, because I thought, wow, that approaching music from the vantage point of the composers of the 16th or 17th or 18th century, rather than from the vantage point of 20th century musicians, resulted in something very artistically and aesthetically rich, as early music, for example. And I was thinking, wow, if that works so well in music, I definitely want to do that in instrument making. And ever since then, I was really inspired by this idea, and keeping in touch with the origins of fine violin making as art, as a cultural tradition, and sharing that message with more musicians and more instrument makers. Very interesting story. Gordan, so today you are at the very top of your career. And for lots of younger musicians, being where you are today is something that they maybe see on the horizon. It's like they're thinking, wow, I would like to be like Gordan one day in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years from now. But now you are on that horizon. So what horizon do you see? Something that other musicians don't, if that question makes sense.
Since I'm teaching a lot, especially this COVID situation has brought this activity really to foremost of all my, concerns and activities and thoughts. One cannot transmit the experience. You cannot transmit the experience. You can offer some kind of platform on which somebody can have some experiences. You can link that a little bit left and right.
Yeah. So you transmit knowledge, but experience is something that they have to build up by themselves. Is that what you mean?
No, it means the direct experience you cannot transmit.
Yeah.
But there is one thing which is always escaping any kind of definition or any kind of constancy in its appearance. I think is as many things, one needs to have a talent towards the communication about this sort of subject. It's not about communicating an information, or any subject, but communicating the state of soul which allows an access to a composer or to an acoustics.
Yeah.
Or to apparently unbridgeable difference between two colleagues, which may at one point even hate each other for a small amount of time, just because this place doesn't work. You know that.
Yeah.
We are even sort of, very, very nicely behaving towards what one could hear from the theater world, or actually. Let's not go into other businesses, but so these things are actually absolutely on the right place there. That means once when there is impossibility that one is facing, there is always some kind of, like Tarzan, Tarzan being, you take a liane to go from one tree to another, there is one point here which is actually connecting these 2 points, So whenever you have a impossibility, what is the common point that you can actually, so this is as well talking to myself, because I see this sort of impossibility, now violin, is not as supple as it was once. So I have to actually switch on my brains and figure out as well those little...
find that liane
exactly.
from one point to another.
And then suddenly I think, my God, it's so funny how if you're relatively gifted, and if you are, have been led correctly when you're young, and if you're young, you can do hell of a lots of stupid things and it works.
True.
Yeah, and then suddenly now I have actually to switch this thing on, and then suddenly you see that technicalities and the spirit, technicalities which have strategic technicalities, let's say, because I was dying of laughter the other day. I was reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War. The book that was written 2,500 years ago, where the guy beautifully explains the difference between tactics and strategy, and say strategy without tactics is the longest path to victory. Tactics without the strategy is the noise before defeat.
Very true. I heard so much about this book recently from different sources, now also from yourself. I have never read this book, to be honest, but now that I hear it also from you, and so beautifully and cited here, I'm definitely going to find this book and read as well.
No, it's really fun. It's really, when you see, just we didn't progress we progressed in hygiene, but otherwise, I don't think. Anyway, this is the thing. That means the details, the technicality has always to be in a sense of the tendency.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is what one asks for her. When you isolate to solve any vertical problem, you will never be able to lift off. You will have a fantastic construction, but you will not be able to fly on the violin or any instrument, basically. So this is a bit of and I see many incredibly competent people who are doing fantastic job and staying on the ground. Like, cool.
Where can people learn from you? So are there like regular masterclasses? I mean, we all know that you are regularly teaching at Codarts, is that correct, in Rotterdam Conservatory? And besides this, if somebody is not your student at Codarts in Rotterdam, they still want to learn from you, how can they find you?
I'm teaching as well in Saarbrücken in Germany, and once a year we have a masterclass. I hope it will happen this year as well. It's in beginning of August, second week, I think. It's in Sardegna.
Oh, wow, beautiful place.
Surgiu in mountains up there, where it's snowing in winter.
Oh, wow.
Good food, and you have to walk a lot of up and down. So it's good for your health.
I'm already sold.
And that's Orchestra de Camera de Sardegna. That's the organization which is putting that together.
Lovely. Is there information where we can find more details, like a website or social, or do you have a website?
I'm sure I have it, but I don't have it in my head. You know.
We will find it later. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to your masterclasses in the description of the podcast, so our audiences, those listening to our conversation on podcast platform, and our viewers listening or watching this conversation on YouTube or Facebook or whatever other visual platform, can find this information and hopefully reach out and learn from you. Wonderful.
You know, learning to learn, basically.
Yes, always. That learning never, ever ends. And in today's world, we are turning into perpetual learning machines. And actually, don't we love it? We actually love learning, don't we?
Listen, that's Menuhin again. He had lots of good observations about some apparent details of the of our craft, but which are actually extremely substantial. He pointed out once a difference between the virtuoso and an artist. And virtuoso is incredibly admirable. That means there is sometimes nothing that can escape its, alive eye for any kind of solution, any kind of point, any kind of finesse would be perceived, would be able to reproduce, will be just incredibly accurate in its perceptions and delivery of anything that he does. But artist is somebody who just feeds himself with what he does. So that doesn't exclude that an artist can be a virtuoso as well.
Yes, yeah.
But virtuoso on its own doesn't mean artist. That means it's somebody who will necessarily slowly dry out because there is no food. And I'm not talking external food. I'm not, because of course, usually a great virtuoso is always rewarded. But what is feeding you in what you do? That is the aspect that Menuhin was pointing out. And somehow, in this COVID situation, we had been lucky here because in Antwerp, because my wife had right away this lucid observation about, we have lots of musical friends here who don't work in Antwerp, who are all over the place in the world, some of them in Rotterdam and some of them just over their suitcases, which suddenly got stuck here, without playing.
Yeah.
And then we just because we are friends and just because, we were home, we just started, having plans and making some here, there, when there were allowed some rehearsals. And we just started playing music just for the fact that we are home. And we called each other, the Bewoners, the inhabitants, kind of like, because we are really not professionally here. We are here because we love this city. It's so special. And basically we just come out now together just to feed each other. I have this passion about making the sound as simplistic as possible. I don't like the multi-miking in general. It just makes me quite irritated because, it verticalizes the relationships. The relationships can be understood only if you have only one perspective on the relationships. If you just go to... Once I was watching, by the way, Sevilla against Real Madrid in Real Madrid from the VIP loge, and then I could understand why Cristiano Ronaldo is a genius. Before, I always found him a buff, of course, virtuoso, But he was a genius, and you cannot see that on the television because they just show you who has the ball. Sometimes a little bit something of a situation, yeah. But the way the people are reporting the events are absolutely cutting off the most fundamental reasons for the event.
Yeah.
Of course, the ball is important in football. You take away the ball, you have surrealism. Yeah, fantastic, like Monty Python's. But if you only show mainly the ball, you are missing the entire thing. You can appreciate an individuum, but you will never be able to appreciate a group. And the relationship between the group and two opposing relationships.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they have relationship, and then you can judge, and then you can see Cristiano Ronaldo, for instance, several times in this match, and it was 7-3, the result. It was fantastic.
Wow, this is the best description of soccer or football I've heard in my life. And I'm not a big follower or fan of football, but now that you described it so nicely, I have curiosity. To watch. And
Cristiano Ronaldo, several times in this moment in this match was small like a little baby in a corner, and suddenly he was 2.50 m. Kind of like boom.
Okay. Yeah.
And already the way the energies had to deal with that, it's really something extraordinary. On the television, you cannot perceive that.
I see. Yeah.
You have an orchestra which is recorded with multi-miking, which brings a nice noise. I'm not against this art.
Yeah.
But it takes away phenomenal amount of possibilities of experiencing the story.
Sure. Oh, sure it does. Yeah. That story about what feeds an artist, that it cannot be just external food for inspiration. It actually reminded me one story that I heard from my professor when I was still very young. I was a student at the Conservatoire in St. Petersburg, and my professor, Mark Komissarov, once told me, Komissarov, yes. He told, I think I was playing something terribly. I was like probably bored him to death. And he asked me, Dimitri, did you practice? He asked me all this question very frequently. So I have several questions, several stories around this question. But this particular story, I answered, yes, of course, I practiced a lot. And he said, well, you know what? How you don't have if you practice 6 or 7 or 8 hours every day, you don't have the time to live the life. And if you don't have the time to live the life, you have nothing to express in your music. So he said, you know what, you have to practice intelligently, purposefully, and professionally. So set a goal and solve that within an hour and a half, maybe maximum 3 hours. Don't practice, never practice more than 3 hours. And then read books, watch a movie, enjoy art, have a nap, just go for a walk, enjoy nature, and experience the life, because that's what will make your music richer. And that is something that he taught to all the students, and a very similar idea to what Menuhin had expressed, I feel.
Yeah, that's what he was after. No, it's incredible how much this is difficult to bring in today's context, because the father of my wife is a pediater, retired now, but he put it really beautifully. He said when he started, it was important why. Then it became important how, and today he has the impression that everything is reduced to what. Mm-hmm. So very often when I talk with my fellow musicians, and when I describe a metaphor, if they are polite, they would just be a bit very ill at ease, kind of like, so is it just a little bit less forte or more forte? What does he mean? That means some of the colleagues are embarrassed with that. For instance, Bernard Haitink never understood the word I'm telling. He was famously, several times he said in front of me, I don't understand the word you're saying, but they're always playing better afterwards. So thank you. And it is true that the LSO, if I stand up and I say, listen, it's such a lovely weather outside, and I sit down, they just know, okay, pay attention and just play better, and that's it, and that's fine. But it's true that it's impossible to talk about music. It's impossible. So be pragmatic, just say piano, forte, whatever, and then just propose a tendency that can be understood. Musical people understand that, but you can sometimes express some doubts, some disorientation. This lovely Croatian poet who said once that what he loves in life is good simplicity and unclarity, which is the sunshine of the clarity. That means when you don't understand something in the music, late Beethoven quartets, lots of it is just there in order to. Like Beethoven said, all music is an upbeat. That's what we were talking about, the tendency before. It's the same kind of speed. If you stop the tendency, you stop the music. Mm-hmm. So this is a thing that is substantial for us. This is as well like Orfeo. You want to check what is now.
Yeah.
You lose Euridice. You lose your love.
It's a very profoundly deep what you have just mentioned about why, what, and how, and I so strongly agree. In today's reality, we are so good at talking about what, and we are very good at talking
Never
how,
been better.
but we rarely explain things. Why we do stuff we do, and well, that would be my last question on this podcast to you. Why are you doing what you're doing? What legacy would you like to create?
At the moment, I am actually I started to write some things down, because since a while, of course, I have these things in. It's quite liberating thing to just let the words take over the burden.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. I still don't know exactly that, because somehow I try to find out what is actually the subject of what I write. The fundamental subject is the constants of the liberation that is there in sound making. Just on the origin of the sound, production is just kind of constant liberation, but it cannot never be totally set free, otherwise the speech is gone. It's like if you're an angel, you're not a human anymore. So it's kind of like constant. That's what Zuckerman does so well. He's always closing down in order to liberate. Close down, liberate. Close down, liberate. That means you're sharing. His Brahms sonatas are entirely just based on that. Just listen to his first sonata with Rubinstein, and it's only constant liberation that is going on. So this is fundamental thing for the vibration. Is it like that for a human being as well? Is the constant freedom actually something which is absolutely despisably nonsensical? That means that nothing can actually happen anymore. That means that it's only there in a relationship. And relationship that's always, you always have something to liberate a bit more. And if that doesn't work, then it's not a relationship. It feeds itself only from that. So, and I'm still there in the caves, trying to scratch out of this thing some kind of idea, would be my universality, of what I think, and has definitely to do with acoustics, because I really don't like these modern halls. I really don't like them because they're there to make the information travel. It's like microphones today. That means all these acousticians are doing one thing. They want to make the information travel, and I don't want to give an information. I want games that the sound is actually doing in the corners over there when he's getting lost, when he's totally depleting its existence and getting mixed to other things which are fresh and etc. In a resonant acoustics.
Yeah.
I'm not talking church. I'm talking old-fashioned shoebox hall like Musikverein or Concertgebouw, etc. Or Leningrad Philharmonic. Had the chance to play once there. Shostakovich Fourth Symphony with Gergiev. I was really happy to be there. Because many of my favorite recordings have been done there. How to say, why I am doing that has to do probably with acoustics. That means the resonance with the vibration and their relationships, the way that they can defactualize anything. And this is a thing that I probably miss the most today.
Well, wow, that's quite a mission.
It keeps you busy.
And well, it keeps you busy. It keeps you inspired. It keeps you wanting to bring about a positive change. And if you were to ask me that ridiculously difficult question, I would have had a hard time answering. So I would probably start somewhere like you started. And am I thinking about writing a book? Yes. If you would ask me exactly what about, yeah, definitely that would be dedicated to the stuff that I was passionate about all my life, the acoustic in stringed instruments. And it would be about connecting with the roots, with the origins, and bringing these thousands of years of culture beneath the enigmatic outlines of a violin or violin-like instruments, so that there is this element of liberation, if you see what I want to try to say. It's like when you are connected with these roots, when you understand the ancient masters' thought process, their feelings, their point of view of the universe, their philosophy, how they perceived acoustics, which didn't properly exist in modern terms, but they still created those incredible instruments with absolute flow, ease, and freedom. And how beautiful that would be to share this. Like for you, it would be sharing your experience so that, musicians can create their music with this flow and freedom. Let's do it. Gordan, just let's do it.
Keep going, man.
Keep going, Gordan. Listen, I have had absolutely enormous pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. I want to continue, frankly. Maybe what we can do is just meet live and chat live, and if we feel like, produce another episode just like this, but instead of Zoom, just sit together somewhere in a nice place, with a glass of nice drink, with a beautiful view over something. And why not in Sardegna? I don't know. I would come there. I would just come there when you are teaching there.
Fantastic coffee place. Just
wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. And just have chat and share our messages. Look, we have tons of things to share. So thank you so much, Gordan, for today, and for sharing your inspirational story and your wisdom as a musician, as a violinist, as concertmaster, as a person on a mission. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Take care. Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself too. So, dear friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Do let us know what did you like, and do let us know what would you like me to cover in the future episodes on Luthiers and Legacy podcast. And here is one more thing. Write a review on any one of the episodes and post it on social with the tag Dmitry Badiarov so that I can find your review in order to win a free 15-minute consultation call. We will get on the call and discuss your instrument making business and see what you could potentially change to take your instrument making business to yet another level. All you have to do is write a review, post it on social with the tag Dmitry Badiarov in your review. And for today's episode, that is all. I wish you massive success in your career. Let's do it together. Let's change things. Let's shake things up and let's build a legacy at Bench. See you in the next show.